Hi, my name's Andrew John Rainnie, and I am the author of Spirits of Vengeance, The Stone of Spirits. It's my debut fantasy novel. It's available now on Amazon for Kindle. It's available on iTunes for iPad and iPhone, and as well as Barnes & Noble for Nook, and also on Google Play for any Android devices you have. So this blog is going to be about the characters in my book, but before I get into that, I just wanted to say thank you to those that came to the book launch in Glasgow on Wednesday night. It was very successful. Done a reading, gave away some free badges and bookmarks, but it was a resounding success. A lot of people have now placed an order for the book itself when it is published by CreateSpace, as in a paperback. But like I said, I want to talk a bit more about the characters and give you a bit more feel for who these people are and why I've crafted them the way that they are. So the first person I'm going to talk about is who you'd think would be the main character, but isn't in fact that. It's a guy called Callaghan Tor. So Callaghan is a member of the Ishkava Rangers. So the Ishkava Rangers are like a warrior nomad race in the world of Inara. They are, I imagine them as a hybrid between the Rangers that we see in Lord of the Rings and the Jedi in Star Wars, doing some detective work. They'll go where a normal Master of the Guard or a soldier can't, and they'll also keep the peace between countries and regions and also other races as well. So they are well respected with all races and countries. And Callaghan's in a unique position because he is the Ranger Elite, so he has been chosen to wield a Skara. Now Skara is the fire sword of Rysar himself. Rysar is one of the 4 elemental gods in the western continent of Amoros. They have 4 gods, and Rysar is meant to have forged a Skara back when they were building the world itself. So it's a very big honour to wield this sword. Now, we start off with Callaghan wanting to mend peace between Amoros and Celestia. They are the 2 big continents that are at war. They've been at war for over a generation, and there is no relent in the war. They are both still going at it quite heavily. And Callaghan has an idea where he will bring a Celestian over to Amoros and train him as his apprentice, and hope that this one small step will build peace towards their 2 peoples, because him and his entire generation have not known peace. They've been at war for over 3 decades. So Callaghan is who we would consider the main archetype character, because he is a big warrior. He wields the sword, he has the purpose and drive, but he also has quite a depressing past. He's quite a traumatic past that has put him on this path, and he could have gone either way down it. Now, no good hero is good in itself without a good villain, or a bad villain, depending on your way. So our villain is Lord Balen Malenek. So Balen Malenek wanted to be a priest when he was younger, but his father was a guard high up in the Horosian army, and so he decreed that his son had to follow in his footsteps like he'd fallen in his father's. So Balen joined the Horosian army, and he was positioned in Caspia when they discovered that there was a new country. This is Celestia, the new continent that had since been undiscovered, because between the 2 lands there lies a massive storm known as the Badlands. So it was decreed that they were going to build 4 massive ships to breach the Badlands and see this other land, to see if they could conquer it or see who else was there. And Balen was one of the first to volunteer. And when they were there, they met the Celestian tribes and the Celestian Zan, Jada, so that's the equivalent of their queen. And chaos ensued. The negotiations did not go well, and it was a bloodbath. And Balen escaped as the lone survivor, managing to navigate his way through the Badlands alone back to Amoros and to the Caspian port of Callisto. Now, at this point, Balen managed to go away from the soldier life. He believed he was touched by the gods, that he'd survived as a result of being touched by the elementals, and so he followed his true path of the priesthood. Originally, Balen believed that he could bring peace, like Callaghan did, through uniting the lands, but his idea was to unite them through religion. While he was in Celestia, he was able to study some of the religious texts and speak with the religious shaman, and he noticed there was similarities between his country's history and gods and the Celestians' country's history and gods, and he hoped to show both peoples that they were two halves of the same whole, essentially. But of course, no country would go for that, because each country had their own religion and believed it ruthlessly, to the point that they were willing to kill for it and die for it in the name of their gods. So Balen was shunned, and as a result, he shunned the world. He moved away high up into the Maitor Mountains, where he built himself a little castle and stayed there, just ignoring the world. But Balen became part of a bigger plot where he wanted to bring peace to Inara still. He realised he couldn't do it through religion, so Balen's plan is to create an army of spirits, the vengeance spirits of the title, and they will sweep across Inara, and then they'll sweep across from Amoros and then into Celestia. And his plan is to bring peace to everyone, whether they are white or black, centaur, elf, human. He is going to just kill everyone in order to make them all go into the next life. This is his plan. Now, it's quite horrific. It's genocide on a level of a planet, and it was hard to work out why he would want to do this, because he started off as a man of peace, but in his head, and it's not just his mind, but he has been manipulated by others, but in his head, this is what he has to do in order to bring peace to a land that has been ravaged by war for 30 years. He has to release every soul from their body in order to bring peace. He's jumped off the end of the cliff, essentially, in the sense that he can no longer see the value in life and the way that we value it in flesh and blood, and the experience and enjoyment of that. And it's great because it's not just another villain seeking power or land or wealth. He is doing this because he believes it is for the good of his race, and he is not immune to it himself. He believes that he will have to make this cross at some point as well. And I thought it was great because on one hand you have Callaghan, on the other hand you have Malenek, and they both want the same thing, but they've come up with two very different ways of doing it, two very opposing ways of doing it, and that's what sets them on a path to battle, essentially, these two old friends. But there's one character we haven't mentioned, and that's the main character, which is Kamina Elloeth, the young tree elf. So Kamina Elloeth is a tree elf. Now the tree elves have vacated the land of Amoros. They've retreated into Elgrin Forest, and they have been there for over 100 years. They've just lived in peace away from the humans. The humans have encroached in their land time and again, and they've just gotten used to the fact that this is going to happen and keep away from them. They believe that the humans' affairs are theirs, and they do not want to be involved in anything, including the war. But unfortunately, Callaghan learns that someone within Elgrin Forest has been targeted by one of Malenek's spies, that they are going to be assassinated, and Callaghan rushes to Elgrin Forest to try and save who this is, and it turns out that this is Kamina's brother, Caden. When Caden dies, Kamina manages to seek revenge for his death, and as a result she brings him back as a vengeance spirit in a similar way that Lord Malenek has raised an army of vengeance spirits. And because Kamina has been able to do so, she becomes an ally with Callaghan, because not only are they able to see how the spirits react in this world, but they are also able to use Caden and Kamina as a way to warn people that Malenek is coming with these armies of spirits, because otherwise they simply won't believe them. So Callaghan decides to take Caden and Kamina to the main Amorosian human city of Callisto. It's a seaport, and it'll be the last place Malenek strikes. And on the way, Kamina learns a few things about her family that she was unaware of, and decides that she must join Callaghan in finding the Stone of Spirits of the title. The Stone of Spirits is a device that Callaghan believes will stop the spirit army. And it's great just because Kamina's not the person you'd expect her to be the main hero of the story. You've got a big Amorosian warrior, you've got a big evil priest villain, and then there's this tiny little tree elf, but she manages to find the strength inside herself to go on this quest when Callaghan can't, and find the Stone of Spirits and hopefully bring it back and defeat the Spirit Army. And one of the main reasons I loved writing Spirits of Vengeance was because of Kamina. Originally the story started out as Caden was this character, and it just felt a little flat because Caden always wanted to go on an adventure with the Rangers, with Callaghan, and then he suddenly gets to do so, but it just felt a little flat and he didn't have as much to lose as Kamina. Now, a tip for writers: if you are struggling to identify who your main character is in your book, it is the person who has the most to lose. And if you don't know who that is, design something for them to lose, and that will be them. So Kamina became mine because I was able to identify things that she was going to lose and gradually take them away from her and give her a reason and a purpose to go on this quest. And one of those was including Caden. So Caden dies quite early on in the book, but he is brought back as a spirit of vengeance, and that worked quite well as well because he got his wish. He gets to go on an adventure with a ranger, his favourite ranger, Callaghan Tor, but it's not the way he expected. He has to go as a ghost, so he's not able to enjoy it as much. He also, over the course of the book, will realise that perhaps this is not the life that he had imagined it would be, that being a noble warrior comes with certain drawbacks that he hadn't actually thought about, and he begins to believe that maybe his life would be better at home. And the reason I've designed Caden's journey in that way is because it mirrors Kamina's. Kamina at the start of the book wants to stay at home, and hopefully by the end she will learn the inner courage that she has managed to find on this journey should be wielded as a ranger herself. And Caden is the exact opposite. He's always wanted to be a ranger, he's always wanted to be gung-ho in a sword fight, and then he hopefully comes to the realisation that he just wants to come back home and be with the love of his life, who he finally realises when they're halfway around the world. So that's some of the main characters of my book. I hope they sound appealing enough to buy it and read it. Like I said, Kamina is not your typical hero. She's a young female elf, but it's the finding of the strength that I personally thought was a great quality, and I think it's a universal thing that a character who has to dig deep and find the strength to stand up to someone as ruthless or as driven as Lord Malenek. I think we can all identify with that, and that's where the story made sense when I started writing it. That's when I got most excited, when I came up with Kamina's journey. So if you need an excuse to buy it for Kamina. So my name's Andrew John Rainnie. This is my blog on Spirits of Vengeance, the Stone of Spirits. I've been talking about the characters this time. Next time I'm going to talk about a bit more about the world that I've made. I'll show you the maps that I designed, and I'm also going to talk about how I've come up with the names of certain people and places and little in-jokes and Easter eggs as well. So I hope you'll watch that. Thank you for watching.